Welcome to the Operatory podcast, the podcast about burying the dinosaurs in dentistry, moving past outdated technology and procedures to find a better way. With me, as always, is the dancing man himself, David Pryor. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well. So, Dave, you obviously provide the patient's perspective on our podcast all the time, which is very valuable, but you've also been talking with lots of dental professionals, as we know, through this whole crazy, as offices are opening from COVID-19. And I was wondering, what kind of things are you hearing from people? Obviously, most people are contacting you about Opera DDS or Opera VR. And so they're looking to solve some problem in their office. And so I just kind of wanted to start off this podcast as you normally being the blank slate, but this time you have some insight into what the experiences of what people are struggling with in dental practices. So what are you seeing, man?
Yeah. So I was talking to you earlier today about what I was seeing in the marketplace. Certainly a lot of calls lately from a lot of different offices that are having issues with overcomplicated software. And so they're looking for a solution that's much, much easier than what they've been using. And their staff members may not be back for quite some time, so they need to figure out a different way to be able to have an easy solution. And so I've been getting a lot of calls for that, in addition to obviously our forms and our teledentistry. Those have been the two driving factors, but just creating a really easy-to-use solution for patient reminders lately has been something that's really been growing for us. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, to get your perspective on how you think we're so much easier than other patient reminder systems.
Well, so what you're saying is that people can't figure out how to send reminders to patients in the software that they spend hundreds of dollars a month for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why we created it. It's to be easy, right?
Right.
I mean, if it's kind of insane to think about it, that something as simple as sending reminders to your patients is complicated. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why is that, if all you have is hammers, you try to look at everything as like a nail, right? Yeah. But what we're trying to do is we have such a broad communication package with lots of features. And look, I'm a dentist, right?
Yeah.
And I have to not only do I have to teach everybody in the practice how to use the system, but they tell me directly all of the issues and things that they want to streamline. So for me, it's almost self-preservation to make this easy to use, because then on the other end, we've got the 90-year-old grandmother that needs to use this too. So yeah, I mean, I think it fundamentally comes from being parts of many practices and needing these workflows to go smoothly, so that what you were telling me before was how somebody at the front desk, let's call her Betty, and Betty runs the software for the practice, but Betty's on furlough and the rest of the team is back, or maybe Betty decided not to come back, which is happening a lot in practices right now.
Yeah,
right?
And that's exactly what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and so then, because there's one person that's the master, because they've actually spent the stupid amounts of time and energy to learn somebody else's crappy system. Let's put it that way, right? Yeah. Which is not a nice way, but that's the way I put it. And then and then Betty's gone, and somebody else has to become a master of this practice or this recall system. And I think it's funny when I see we're going on tour and we're teaching everybody how to use our system. It's why would you have to do that?
Right.
Why would you have to go spend your time, your CE time, when you could be learning about new procedures, new ways to grow your practice, but instead you're learning how to send a text message to your patients? That's just plain wrong.
Right.
Right? I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's certainly what's been really nice for me as a solution for these practices that are trying to create an easier way to do what they've done in the past. And now that really people are having to reinvent a lot of the processes that they've been doing, which again is why forms have been blowing up. But as a result of our forms blowing up, people have been looking at our patient reminder system as something that could be a great solution for them as well, because what they're trying to do, and certainly what I'm seeing over and over and over again, is that dentists are trying to consolidate their different software vendors into as few as possible, and that's exactly what we offer. And so when looking at Opera DDS, not only does it consolidate a bunch of vendors for most people, but it also creates a much more straight to the point solution. And that's certainly what I've found, and the customers that I work with have found. But your perspective on it has always been really, really helpful for me when explaining it to people as to why we chose the path that we did to make something so easy. And exactly like you were just saying, why should we create a software where you have to spend a ton of time learning our software when you could be spending it much more valuably on something else that's actually going to move the practice forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really what happens is that most other software companies are like they're private equity backed, and what they're trying to do is figure out ways to charge more for the same thing. So they start putting more, we call it in the industry, software bloat, feature bloat, right?
Yep.
And so they start adding features that nobody's asking for, that then this becomes this bloated piece of software that's expensive, and you have to get special training on, and then Betty leaves and you get a new front desk person and they've got to go through the same BS training and figure out what of these features you want to actually use, right?
Yeah.
When what we're really doing is we're really streamlining it, making it so that all the features that you need are there and they're easy to use. And then obviously you can augment with things as you like or not,
right?
Which is kind of unique in the industry because that's our perspective. It's like, we don't want to charge you for crap you're not using, and not for features you're not using, because we do have that other stuff, right? But and also, I mean, then you're anybody's going to be motivated, because it should not be hard to send a text message, to send an email, postcard, voice calls. I mean, these are all things that are basically table stakes that everyone should be able to do easily from any system. And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that people are calling you up, like realizing that. And I think it probably took something like COVID-19, where there's sort of a shakeup of the industry, where there's team members that are replaced or not there. And then the people realize, well, this system is set up very complicated, right?
Right. And really what's causing this for us is the fact that so many people jumped on board needing paperless form solution. They want all their patients to fill out all their paperwork outside the practice, right? And so that was the impetus to get them to come look at our software platform. But now I'm getting all these practices right now that are just hammering me on, like, well, this is going to save me a ton of money and it's super easy to use. Oh, let's do it. And that's what's really happening. It was kind of surprising to me. I really thought that our average customer usage would just focus on forms as part of COVID, but quite frankly, the opposite has happened. We've grown in a much broader way, and I was really surprised to see that happen.
Well, I want to speak to something that I think the dental, like the people who are running dental practices, office managers and dentists, will probably feel. And that's, the other side of this, having somebody who's mastered the software that nobody else knows. It really puts you at risk, because I know I've been in the situation where there's been somebody at the front desk who was I felt was irreplaceable because of their knowledge, right? And then you can't make a change, which would be in the best interest of your practice. And the core issue here is your software is too complicated, right? And so you can be actually left beholden to employees who have knowledge, and you're too busy doing. We're all busy. We're all, right now we're trying to reopen our practices. We got to figure out how to do PPE and sneeze shields and wrap ourselves in saran wrap to see patients. And we can't now's the time to make a people change because that software is too complicated, right? So if you don't have somebody like at the front desk that can learn that practice, you're going to have to either spend calories to spin somebody up and master this complicated piece, or spend the calories to switch to an easy system. And I think that's what you're really seeing too, is
not only can they get something easier, that's the no-brainer part, but it also ends up being less expensive.
Yeah,
so
and then
you've done a lot around that.
And the piece that I see going on in practices all over the place is that there's some team member that has this specialized knowledge of the software that you don't make a change because of that, and that's just a philosophical wrong, right? We use software that's easier to use to solve that problem, right? Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate your perspective as always.
You got it.
And we'll talk to you next week on the Operatory podcast, sir.
Hey, Bryan. Talk to you later.